This year, I have taken on the somewhat audacious goal of not only finishing some painting projects, but playing a lot of the games that have made my collection grow to a nearly unmanageable size. We're in an age of large box games with tons of content and a lot of story to get through, hours and hours of gameplay. That is not always the most manageable thing to face. And as I've been in a lull tackling the large boxes in my collection, I was in the mood for something still story based, still narrative driven, but a little bit more bite sized and manageable. And as my eyes perused the collection, looking for something a little more manageable to play in the meantime, I came across Destiny's Myth and Folklore. I've played most of the scenarios in Destiny's in the base game. I played all of the Sea of Sand expansion, but I had not tackled Myth and Folklore. And realizing that I have had a great experience with most of my sessions in Destinies, I wanted to take a quick moment to tell you how the game works and tell you a little bit about why I enjoy this experience. Oh, and spoiler warning for some of the early bits of the last scenario of Myth and Folklore. Let's jump into it.
Destinies is a story-rich, app-driven, RPG-like experience from Lucky Duck Games. And originally, I had heard this, let me know if this is true. It was designed to be a part of the Time of Legend series of games. Time of Legend, Joan of Arc, is a war game that has been out for a long time, and it's very gothic, very dark. And given the theme and subject matter of that Joan of Arc game, you can kind of see the through line here. You can definitely tell right off the bat, even looking at the covers of the games, you'll notice that the presentation here is excellent. There's just lots of little details in every component of Destinies. When you start a game of Destinies, you're going to pick a number of heroes to be. And what's interesting about this, as far as I know in all the scenarios I've played, I'm not sure about Witchwood, which is the latest scenario box that came out not too long ago. You're going to pick one of the heroes, but the heroes change every scenario. So you don't have a ongoing campaign in this. You just have a scenario-based game that you're going to play. And I think there's 3 characters you can choose from in most of them. But these are the characters for the 3 scenarios that come in the Myth and Folklore box. Once you get your character, you'll place it on one of the player boards, but not before checking the back. And this is where the namesake of the game comes into play. So on the back, you'll see a little bit of flavor text for your character. So this knight errant was sent by Joan of Arc herself. Again, you can see the through line to the Time of Legend world here. You were sent to end the dark influence of the gods of Karnak. To achieve that, you need to reason with Jophiel and free him from his bonds to the lost cathedral. So you will win this scenario by either doing one of these 2 things, and for this instance, you can use the deciphering skills of Master Vincenzo, which means you need to find 5 secret clues and bring them to his house in the local port town. Or you could secure the help of one of the 2 lesser gargoyles, Simiel or Vehuel. You need to solve their problems to restore them to their true angelic form. And you'll win the game after a bunch of tests at the end of the game, after completing these, if you complete one of these 2 destinies. And each character has something different. So with there being 3 characters in each scenario, you'll see that there are really only like 6 objectives total, and they're going to overlap. So this character over here might have the same objective as this character over here, and their other one is going to be shared by this character in the middle, if that makes sense. So there's not complete autonomy with these characters, but there's enough to keep it interesting.
So when you open up a game of Destinies in the app, and it is available on Steam, so you could play on a PC or laptop if you'd like to, you're going to be greeted with some awesome flavored text that'll read this text crawl, setting the stage for the scenario you are about to play. And here is the character selection screen I mentioned earlier. As you can see, there are 3 characters you can play for this particular scenario. And when we select this character and click OK, we're going to see those starting attributes as well as the item that we get. You get a coin, and you get to see what your miniature looks like. And the miniatures are probably by far the least impressive part of this game, but more on that in a little bit. And once we begin, you'll see that the app tells you to get out some of the map tiles for the initial setup of the game. And once you get a map tile out and flip it over, it'll tell you whether there's some point of interest or non-player characters to put out. And again, there's a lot of little minis for these particular interactions, as long as they're not like just a landmark or a store, that kind of thing. And then the game's going to tell you what tiles to put around the starting tile, and then you'll begin your first day. On your turn, you'll have the opportunity to visit one of the tokens or NPCs that you see on the tile your character currently is on. There's lots of opportunities to speak to different NPCs, to explore, or to do a skill test.
Each character in Destinies has 3 skills at their disposal. They have intelligence, they have dexterity, and they have power. And as you'll notice, these wooden discs that we put out each have a numerical value based on where they are placed on the tracks of these skills. When the game prompts you to test one of these skills, you're going to take your 2 main dice and pick any of the 3 purple dice you have at your disposal to use. As you saw, when the game begins a day, you get to refresh one of these dice. And if you have it, you can use it. You can use all 3 if you have them, or you can use none if you have them. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take a look at the skill that you're testing, roll the dice that you've chosen, and then count the numerical value that you have now earned on the roll. So in this instance, if we are testing intelligence, we have rolled a value of 5, 6. We look at the 6 and see that we have 1, 2 successes within that skill track. So, based on what the game has told us, we'll click that numerical value, and then we'll see what the game offers. If you happen to roll this symbol, it is an automatic success that is added to the successes that you earn based on the roll on your track.
Destinies then becomes a game of numbers, allowing you to perhaps earn the rewards that you see on the screen now. Perhaps you'll gain more intelligence because you answered some questions correctly, or maybe you'll get some tokens that allow you to re-roll. Every turn, you have freedom to either stay where you are and continue to exploring the options on that tile, or you can move on. Use your movement to find new parts of the map.
The twists and turns that you find in the game, I find really intriguing. Really want to know what's happening in most of these scenarios. The writing is really good, the characters are really good, and the world is dark and foreboding and really interesting. It's fantasy. There are monsters and crazy items, but there's a religious tint to it that's really interesting, a real world religious tint to it. What they've done is they've taken history, real world people, and expounded upon it, making it a little more fantastical and adding supernatural elements. And it's just kind of an interesting and unique theme.
Sometimes as you interact with characters, you'll end up earning, or you can even buy from shops, different items. And the items in Destinies are really unique.
Every single item that you'll come across within Destinies includes a very unique QR code. And you'll even see that your characters have their own QR codes as well. And the character codes correspond to those particular Destinies that we took a look at earlier in the video. Now, the reason you get QR codes on every single item that you come across is that you use a camera on a device, and you can ask anybody you come across about a particular item, or use an item to forego a skill test that you might have to face. As you explore and as you uncover more map tiles, you begin to piece together, most of the time, a beautiful landscape of really nice art filled with detail and things to explore.
And hey, that's pretty much it. That's the gist of the game. You'll travel around an ever growing map, you'll interact with characters, very colorful and vastly different from time to time. You'll test your skills, you'll gather weapons, you'll use weapons in certain instances and lose them or make them more powerful. And eventually, you'll get to the point where you've fulfilled your destiny, you fulfilled what you have set out to do. And then the game will tell you which location you need to return to. And most games end with a succession of skill checks, and it'll tell you whether you compete or not. Now, playing this game solo, which is what I've done, I've also played it with 2 players. It took me close to an hour to do. It's a very manageable session. Of course, it's going to take a little bit longer with more people. And you can begin to see, interestingly enough, what your opponents are trying to do. When you're playing solo, you're just trying to figure out the puzzle yourself. You don't really need to compete or race against the clock of the other person. It is a game that's helpful to have a notepad or something to look over, especially if you're trying to keep your objectives hidden. You are going to interact with a lot of different things. You're going to come across a lot of different dialogue trees and items, and each map tile, as you might have noticed, has 2 or 3 things to interact with, and it's a lot to keep track of. But you will start to see what your opponent's trying to do, and you could try to mess with them, or you could just focus on your task at hand. If you're paying attention, um, it's pretty easy to ascertain what the people are trying to do that you're playing against. Oh, by the way, if you don't want to see minis, just skip ahead to close to the end. There are some really nice models in this game. Each box has like one big kind of showpiece model. This is the one for Myth and Folklore. But my biggest complaint with the game is honestly every other mini. There are some kind of medium-sized ones. These are pretty obvious. But Destinies, the core box, comes with 25, 30 miniatures of this size. And if you're trying to find these guys, it can be really, really difficult. I have an earlier edition of the game, and I've noticed that the app now has a number by each one of these minis. I bet that later editions of the game are numbered, so you can actually find these a lot faster. But I get to the point in this game where I just grab any random gray piece and put it where there's supposed to be an NPC that you can talk to. It makes the game a lot quicker. I would never try to paint these. It's just too much. They're so small, and some of them are so similar. Since I started making this video, I'm now kind of doing the wrap up. I have purchased a copy of the latest box in the Destinies line, and the minis in that are much bigger. My guess is that they got a lot of feedback and people really wanted those miniatures to be bigger and more easily identifiable. But hey, that's it. This is a pretty quick video. I'm trying to do a lot more shorter content so I can increase my content on the channel. As you know, I don't upload that often, but got a small little community here of people, and it's been nice to see the channel grow. So I'm trying to give a little bit more of a consistent upload schedule while I work on those big pieces and longer form playthroughs. I will get back to League of Dungeoneers at some point. I want to finish up at least a full campaign. I finished an entire campaign. I didn't let it leave the table of Iridia, the Paths We Dare Tread, in my quest to actually finish the games that I back, and it was awesome. I've also finished Sleeping Gods playthrough. I'm going to talk about that at some point, but really fun stuff. But there's just a quick look at Destiny, specifically the Myth and Folklore box. If it looks interesting to you, buy it. It's a really well put together, small narrative experience, and I really, really enjoyed it.